the worst aspects in synastry, in my opinion. Some of you guys might refer to these aspects as karmic aspects. We can refer to them as karmic relationships. Most importantly, they're toxic aspects, and a lot of times seen in toxic relationships, explosive relationships, relationships from past lives that do not need to be replayed. So these are just my personal top 5. I will throw in a bonus 6th aspect to look out for. So the first one is going to be Pluto and Mars in harsh aspect, of course, square or opposition. For some reason, the conjunction doesn't always play out this way, but when we have Pluto and Mars in harsh aspect, square, or opposition, there is definitely an explosive nature to this relationship. When we think about the nature of Pluto and Mars, they are both rulers of Scorpio, and Pluto is a deeper malefic, and it's not even technically considered a malefic planet, but it uncovers everything. And Mars is our aggression. It's how we go after things. It is our anger, and it's also our sexuality. So that is one of the things about this particular aspect, or these two planets in aspect, is there is sometimes a magnetic pull towards each other because of the sexual attraction and chemistry. That being said, there is a way of, the Pluto person usually has a way of pulling out the anger and the aggression of both partners. That being said, the energy can be exchanged through Pluto and Mars. Both partners are responsible in this case, especially with squares and oppositions. The other aspects are a conversation for another video, but also the sexual chemistry tends to fizzle out if it is in square or opposition. Other aspects are a little bit different. The next one on my list is Pluto in harsh aspects to the moon, and that is square in opposition, of course. Even the conjunction with this one, because technically, if we were looking at a natal chart, these would be considered Hades moons. And as somebody that has their moon square Pluto, the thing about this aspect is if you have your moon in harsh aspect to your Pluto and you date somebody that is in close age range within a few years of your age, you are probably going to have your moon squaring their Pluto. So it's just something to look out for. Now, if composites are a different conversation, of course, but if both people have Pluto square moon, it's also going to be in the composite chart. But Pluto and the moon do not get along. And the moon is how we feel safe. It's our mother. It's our instinctual nature. And it is kind of what we fall back to when we're not comfortable. And Pluto has this antagonistic type energy on the moon person, or the energies of the moon, and can kind of poke and prod and make you feel extremely uncomfortable. I do want to point out, though, that any aspects with personal planets and Pluto have a transformative nature to them. So these relationships, you are going to grow if you can get through these uncomfortable energies, because the Pluto is going to bring out the animalistic and primal and instinctual nature of the moon, and vice versa for that matter. But mostly it's going to be Pluto to moon, whoever has the Pluto, and to the moon person. And that is going to be very uncomfortable, especially for the moon person. But like I said, this does kind of catapult your growth and evolution. Third, I want to point out Mars and Saturn. Now, you wouldn't necessarily think, well, maybe you might, because Mars and Saturn are both malefic planets. And when Mars and Saturn are in harsh aspect, square, or opposition, you have to think of the nature of these planets. Yes, they are both malefics, but the energy of Mars is movement, aggression, energy, vitality, sexuality, and the opposite to that would be Saturn. And Saturn is a planet that is about restriction and slowing things down, staying where you are. You know, it's amongst other things, but they contradict each other. So when you have these in harsh aspect, there is going to be a discrepancy between what one person wants to move towards and what one person wants to stay put in doing. So there's just a contrast of how these two people are motivated to move forward, or what their long-term goals are. They could be completely different from each other, and this can in turn cause a lot of chaos. You see a lot of fighting with these relationships because they're both malefic. So when they're in harsh aspect to each other, that is going to bring out the worst sides of those planets. And remember, there's a bunch of things that go into this. You also have to look and see how they're aspected in the natal chart and what signs they're in, what houses they're in, etc. But when these are in harsh aspect to each other, they are going to bring out the worst of each other, most likely. Next, we have the moon and Mars in harsh aspect, square opposition, of course. And for the most part, when we have the moon in harsh aspect to Mars, there is almost like a codependent energy from the moon person for emotional dependence on the Mars person. And this brings up a lot of emotional difficulties, emotional conflict, and The moon person doesn't like to be dependent on the Mars person, but it's just very instinctual for them. And they could take a lot of their emotional difficulties out on the Mars person, and in turn, the Mars person lashes out. So there's more of not necessarily a physical aggression, but it's an emotional aggression. So there could be more like psychological abuse, or it's very aggressive emotionally for both people involved. And then Pluto or Mars in harsh aspect, mostly the square in opposition. The conjunction, not so much. The conjunction, you see more of a sexual magnetism or sexual chemistry, but it can work. It depends on the charts, of course. It can work out to their detriment, but mostly with the square and the opposition, you see a lot of controlling behaviors. Pluto is definitely a planet of control. We know that. And Mars is aggression. So when we have Pluto and Mars aspecting someone's ascendant, which is their physical body and how they show up in the world, but it's their physical body, we see a lot of controlling dynamics. And this could be like, you know, the narcissist and the empath type dynamic. I don't necessarily like to use those words, but there is a lot of control over where the ascendant person is going or what the ascendant person is doing. You find a lot of mistrust. There's not a whole lot of trust from the beginning of the relationship in regards to the ascendant person, but it can always play out in opposite roles. So sometimes this can play out as a flip dynamic. But when you have Mars or Pluto, and hopefully not both, in harsh aspect to the ascendant person is going to feel controlled, and it can almost be like a threatening control. Like if they don't submit to that control, they could feel threatened for their safety. This could be very detrimental to the ascendant person or either or both people. But this can also spell out physical abuse or abusive relationships, domestic violence, etc. Bonus one, we're not going to dive too deep into, guys, but if you see this aspect, I'm just going to tell you now, run. Run as fast as you can. South node in the sun. Don't mess with it, trust me. No, but the sun, Venus, or Mars and the moon in conjunction with the south node, I probably will have some debates with people about this because south node aspects can represent past lives. You may have incarnated with these people before, but there is something to say and to speak about when you have a personal planet on the south node, and there's not a whole lot of growth that is going to be involved if you stay stuck in that south node. This person could feel very comfortable to you, but it's not going towards your north node. So obviously you want to look and see if there's anything else conjuncting the north nodes in the charts or the synastry charts or the composite charts or the natal charts. But that being said, there is something about, I'm telling you right now, there's something about the sun in the south node. I have talked about this with a few astrologers, and there's something about sun and south node that it just has a red flag written all over it. So use that at your discretion, but hopefully this was helpful for you. If you did like it, please do like and follow. And if you want to book personal readings with me, you can message me on any platform or shoot me an email and we can set that up for you. I love you.